Okay.
There you go, we're live.
All right. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with friend and co-author Sequoia Stafford, who has written two amazing books, one called It's Hard and another called I'm Not Jealous, The Ethical Non-Monogamous Guide to Free Love Relationships Without Suffering. So I am excited to talk to you, Sequoia, because I just know for me, all that comes up with one partner and working through all of that, I am just so interested to hear how this topic, I see from reading your book that, it's been a part of your life journey and that you have so much experience of speaking your truth and leading from the heart. But would just love to hear why you decided to write this book in particular, what brought you to this point.
Well, thank you for having this time to chat about these things and share with your community. I think that my journey along the path of relationships has taken me in quite interesting territories, as you know from reading the book. But really, I think that this book is all about relationships that create family. And I don't, for me, non-monogamy is not a conversation about, how to have sex with as many people as you want. Non-monogamy, actually, or polyamory, is another term that people use for this kind of relationship by design model that I practice. Um, Non-monogamy happened to me by accident after I got my divorce. And I was looking to create a relationship that really worked for who I am as a human being. And I love people. That's really at the heart of my practice, is how can I share with people how to love with freedom and grace and treat other human beings like family that we actually are. Um, and so my book is really about creating family with love relationships that work in this new age that we find ourselves in. Um, you know, Gone are the days where we have these families that stay together forever. Whether it's a life situation that changes the makeup of your family. With new technology, people are getting in relationships in Europe and the United States, and they're long distance and they're seeing each other, by either Zoom or, traveling, not so much right now with COVID. But um, I found that the more I started experimenting with relationships that worked for me, the more I realized I have no interest in getting rid of any of these people who I opened my heart to. So why would I isolate my heart expression to just one person? If it works for the person that I'm with, then as adults and autonomous beings, it is my belief that I should be allow myself to express my love as freely as I want. And, it does require a lot of communication, and it does require also consent, and being open to the people in your life so that they can say yes or no to whatever the relationship expression is. So I'll stop there because I could go on, but I'll stop there and see if did that land for you.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful how you describe it as a family, because what I felt in reading your book was that love of all the people that you have, that your paths had crossed. And so that's what I loved about it. It wasn't the how to have lots of sex, or my other ideas of what I thought that was.
Oh my God,
It
I
was
can't
really
wait. Tell me what your other ideas were, because that actually would help me to understand like the persona of, polyamory or non-monogamy. And I'm still trying to understand what people think. So what was the idea you had?
Um, it's kind of the 1960s view of drugs, sex, alcohol. It's just kind of
Oh my
in
God.
there from Woodstock, from all of those images from when I was young. So I hadn't really stopped to think about it,
Mm,
what it could really mean.
mm.
It's just those images.
Well, it's so
But when
great.
I'm
We'll
reading,
stop there for just a second because most people are like, "Wait, this woman is wearing pearls. She looks elegant. She's clearly not a hippie." Um, but this polyamory thing does have residual reputation for the hippie life, or the anarchists, and and people who are free love and drugs and alcohol and all of that, and and festivals and stuff like that. I mean, the reality is that I'm a really normal person. I'm a mom of a daughter. A lot of that book was written so that my daughter understands the perspective that I have of what I think is coming down the pipe. Generally speaking, I I'm one of those innovator archetype people, and so I generally see about 10 years before something really hits a full wave. Um, I don't know why I see that, but I generally do. Like, I had the first eco-friendly toy store and art studio in Silicon Valley in 2008. Now, green businesses and the, holistic things like that are commonplace, but I was the first. So I tend to see where something is going. And being the mom of an 18-year-old girl who has been expressing with her friends gender fluidity for the last, I would say, 12 years, I've been, as a single mom, trying to manage the conversation so that she knows that I'm totally supportive of whatever she chooses, because she is an autonomous being. And I raised her that way from in utero to when she came out of my body. I was like, look, I'm just your guardian. I'm going to stay out of your way. And I want you to show me what your life is going to be all about. And when I saw that her community of friends were choosing to be a they instead of a she, or, a Z instead of a he, I saw that, like, the old relationship model of boy meets girl, gets married, has children, and then works until they retire, and then they live on the front porch together in rocking chairs like till they die. Like, I don't think that's happening anymore. I think that most people, the reason why divorce rates are even more now with COVID, they've skyrocketed. The reason they're so high is because the old relationship model, in my opinion, does not work. And people are doing serial monogamy, but most people that I coach are dealing with, indiscretions, like, they had multiple partners without telling their partner that they had multiple partners. Well, I personally think if you're going to do that, be honest, because integrity is one of the foundations of a relationship that works. And if you're going to do something that breaks your integrity, that's a big mess in relationships that not a lot of relationships come back from. So if you're going to branch out in that way, do it ethically, do it responsibly, and see whether or not you can feel more love in your life, in your heart, than less love. And that's really where this whole thing came about. Trying to be a template for my daughter, how she and her friends might explore responsibly, the concepts that I think are going to work better with gender fluidity that's coming down the pipe probably in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, I love that you have this little vision into the future so that somebody has to, go first. So I appreciate your courage.
Oh, thank you.
And it does come back. I love that you talk in your book about love leadership. It does come back to integrity, authenticity. Um, that's the only way any relationship works. But when you start adding someone else in, it's even more important.
Oh yeah. It's more important when you have multiple um, um, romantic partners, um, because people's feelings can get hurt if they're left out of the mix. And not everybody's comfortable kind of being all together. And I want to be clear, polyamory and non-monogamy doesn't have anything to do with having multiple sex partners at one time, aka orgies. Polyamory and non-monogamy can look a variety of ways. As a matter of fact, non-monogamy is kind of an umbrella term. Polyamory basically means multiple love, or uh, yeah, uh, and and I think that that's a way of saying designer relationships, not the relationship model that I think is Christian based, that comes from um, uh, uh, a religious blueprint for how to kind of have the family created from that old paradigm. And I have no objection to that, as you read in my book, my family was very Christian based, and all of my mom and dad are still together. My grandparents were still together until they died. The majority of my family is monogamous, and still married. The fact that that didn't work for my marriage was heartbreaking, and I realized that I had this old conversation that I was going to find my soulmate, that there was going to be one person on this planet of millions of people that was the person I was supposed to meet, and that was the person who was going to be with me from the time I found them until the time I, no longer am a kicking. But that's actually didn't show up to be true. I mean, my high school sweetheart and we loved each other, best friends, and our careers took us in different places. His was physical therapy, and he went and he studied in Scotland, and I was a theater major. Now, if you know anything about theater, you basically go and create a family every time you put on a production of a play. You all fall in love, and you might even pretend to be married to someone else. And if you're doing it well, there really isn't anything different between your real husband and the play husband. So I learned early on, like, wow, I actually truly love this person, and I'm actually gonna miss them, or I'm truly mad at this person, as the script says. So when I broke up with my high school sweetheart, which, by the way, we were engaged, when we broke up, that was heartbreaking. But I knew somewhere inside me that there was my own path that I needed to go on, and so did he. And that I wasn't going to cut him out of my life. As a matter of fact, we stayed best friends for a very long time. And, he has a family now, and children, and a wife. But, I wasn't going to say he's dead to me now just because we're no longer romantic or sexual or engaged. It developed into another kind of relationship, and that for me was really eye-opening. Like, okay, I can create love with whoever I want for the purpose of what works for both of us. And if it's responsible and there's no head human saying I can't, um, I'm my own head human. I'll be the leader of my life, and this works for me. And and then out of that kind of journey came loving multiple people, and they would come in and out of my life in different rhythms. And that's part of why I think that non-monogamy started showing up as a relationship model that worked for me.
Well, I love your description of how it worked for you after you got divorced, because what I found was very frustrating when I divorced my first husband was you had to make a case against him.
Oh
The
yeah.
divorce process is set up so you have to fight the other person in court. Like, that's not really what I wanted to do, but I had to follow the rules because I had a lawyer and there was a process. And so I love how you describe it. And I feel like we are moving towards a different way. We just entered the Aquarian age, which is more about community, harmony, collaboration. And so when I hear you talk, I think, oh, this is the energy of the new age that we're going in. It is more about concern for each other, love for each other, collaboration without set rules that set us up against each other.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Did you ever read the Clan of the Cave Bear series?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God. So if you think back to reading those books, they have a way of having everybody in the community supported in the journey of feminine initiation, sexual initiation, marriage initiation, birth initiation, and to make love to a woman in the tribe was to honor Mama Gaia, and the goddess, and creation as a whole. And that book series really resonated with me because my lineage includes Native American, and as a little girl, looking and learning from my grandfather, who is where the bloodline comes from on my mom's side, I really, for some reason, understood and wanted to go into tribal family lifestyles. And really, early humans didn't have these rules and religious overtones. We worshiped and honored and had ritual around natural rhythms of life. And tribes were very small. We were communities of people who supported each other. We didn't say, oh, my teepee has, the bison today, nobody else gets some, and we didn't have one woman in the tribe, who was left out of having children just because she wasn't partnered at that time. Some cultures actually had all the men make love to the woman, and no one knew who the father actually was, because the tribe believed that the energy of all the men went into the creation of that child and that being. And that way, everybody supported the children as a whole, and no child, that was the true no child left behind, right? So that's really where a lot of this originated from, is my childhood trying to understand in the 70s the difference between my Native American roots, really honoring nature and the flow of natural law, versus this kind of modern 70s world where we were more religious based and we had to follow these rules that kind of made us more separate from each other. And I think that for me is really important to kind of understand, because if ever I'm kind of not sure what to do, I look to nature, and there's answers if we just allow ourselves to feel it, see it, and hear it.
That's really beautiful. I wanted to go back to something because you talk about needing a very strong foundation because of all of what you're describing is so beautiful. But your time in the theater, when you talk about needing trust, respect, and safety,
Mm-hmm.
and that if there's any crack in the foundation, that has to be fixed. And I wanted to read just a quote from the book on this because I felt my heart like open
Oh,
and like I want this for me. I feel like I provide it sometimes for other people. They feel really safe around me, but I felt, oh, and I also receive it at times, but it just
mm,
really hit me. You said to the kids, your theater group, I got you covered. I will not let anyone hurt you. I will set up a safe container so that even if a hairline fracture shows its face, I won't move on until it's fixed and we have proof. And I just like,
I'll cry teary.
what child, that's how I felt. I'm like, thank you. Like, okay, I'm free to be me, and we're going to see how me fits in with you and everyone else here. And I won't be left behind, like you were just saying. I just felt this incredible energy. And what a great message for these kids that you were working with. Um,
Yeah, so
so
I
beautiful.
like to tell people who come and work with me, or any of my lovers or partners or family members, friends, that I have a commitment to leave people better off than I found them. And uh, that comes from a Siddha yoga practice that the Siddha yoga monks, when they would come in to prepare a space for um, uh, an event where the guru was going to be coming, they would come in, and even if it was already ready and prepared, they would scrub it clean and leave it cleaner than they found it. That was something for me that really hit a chord. When I was in college, I was Rosalind and As You Like It, and the director who was directing it, he placed that play, that Shakespearean play, in mythological India. And at that time, I started studying Siddha Yoga and the practices, and started going to ashrams, and it really transformed my life, actually. If Bob Jenkins is listening or watching, hi, talking about you, Bob. So the Siddha Yoga monks really kind of transformed my concept of how I wanted to live my life and leave spaces, people, relationships better than I found them. So I have that commitment, and that's like a core tenet. When I was teaching drama to children, I noticed that one of the practices when you teach drama is to play what are called trust games. And I, as an intellectual, I constantly am trying to understand why I would teach this. Now, I was in my 20s, just graduated college and teaching as an artist in resident. And I realized that the whole reason we would teach in drama class trust exercises is not just to do silly things to make people laugh and to fear, make them scared, but it was to train you to trust, to keep each other safe, to feel safe with these people who you're about to go on stage in front of 1,000 strangers to do things that are really uncomfortable to do, cry, like speak, like it's everybody's fear to speak in public, right? So I started to understand that if I, as the basically like a substitute teacher, was going to go into a new classroom, nobody knew me, they never knew, and I was going to have 10 hours broken up by 10 weeks to get someone who's hiding under the table, who's in second grade, who has like emotional stress already. How am I going to get that person, along with, you know, the boisterous one, to get out of the underneath of the table and to stand up on stage with me to do a performance? Like, how am I going to do that? And I'm a creative problem solver. That's my favorite thing to do. And I realized that at the foundation of making that happen, I needed to make sure that they could trust me, make sure they could trust everybody else in the room, make sure they could trust the activities I was asking them to do and the notes I was giving them, make sure that they felt safe, make sure that they were safe so that they wouldn't like fall off the front of the stage and break their leg. Make sure nobody hit anybody accidentally or said a word that could break someone's heart and leave them wounded and never want to be on stage again. And that they would develop respecting each other and also develop receiving and becoming someone who others respect. And that as a foundation, if I could do that in the first 10 minutes, then I would be able to build anything. I could ask them to do anything. I could ask them to stand in front of me and fall, and they would do it. And in fact, that's exactly what I did. Because of what you felt when you read that statement, everyone knew that I wasn't going to let anything bad happen to them. And the teachers also knew that they were safe to leave them with me for an hour and know that like the class isn't going to fall apart. As a matter of fact, the class was going to be better off when I left the class. So my classes were in high demand, and I regularly was asked back from the principal, and some of the toughest teachers who had the toughest problems would be like glued to my side and like my biggest fan. One class in particular, I was, so as a kid, I had special education because I was having some reading difficulty. Back in the 70s, they called it learning disabilities and dyslexia. Now I believe that those kinds of things are just asymmetrical aspects of a young person's learning that generally, if you support them properly, they can actually grow out of it. But I learned how to deal with special education and emotionally disturbed children by being there myself and seeing what was working. So in this one school, I had an emotionally disturbed class. Now, an emotionally disturbed class, there was sometimes two adults to the one child that was needing support. And in this class, there was a little boy who had a really hard time. And there was a young boy who was in special ed that would be brought in to help him out. And that young boy who was in special ed, his name was Ben, my classes made such a difference with him. And he was having a very challenging life. He had a broken home. His parents were divorced and they were not well off. And he really was kind of lost and going down in a bad direction. But he had this affinity for this younger boy. And so he kind of became like my helper, and he got the class twice. So he would help with this emotionally disturbed, and also he would help with his own class he would learn. It turned out when he went to, because this was in elementary school, when he went to junior high, that he was so inspired by the classes that I taught drama to him, that he decided to practice drama, and his life completely transformed. He had a whole new um, outlook on life that was very inspiring. And his father told the principal to make sure to let me know. Um, but his life ended tragically, and he was riding his bike home from school one day, and he was hit by a car and he died. And the father wanted to make sure that I knew that if it wasn't for my classes, he would not have had those last 2 years of his life filled with so much joy and creativity. That was because of the safe space that I created. And that safe space is something that we can all do in our relationships, which is why I put it as part of, non-monogamy and polyamory foundation work. We all need that in every single relationship that we have, whether it's with our children or our parents, or our friends. And it comes back to, if we are not leaving the people in our life better off than we found them, we should not be in those relationships. And we should be working on ourselves so that we can be that kind of person. Because relationships are what make up our community. And I believe community is where we find ourselves. So I think that really, you can do anything if you start with trust, respect, and safety.
Yeah, and certainly if you can get those many different children up and running in such a short time, I'm sure you can help anyone with their relationship issues to come to a place inside themselves where they can trust and feel safe in a situation where that can be challenging. So, good.
I totally agree. And I think that what we're all trying to do here on the planet is just to find our way to safely grow as human beings and to explore. And if we can be that for another person, I think that it adds to our wings.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to say before we complete here?
Just thank you so much. I mean, your insights and questions to what I have written about are just so beautiful, and I appreciate being able to chat with you. The last time we chatted, we talked about leadership, and the book that you wrote on leadership and authentic leadership, and I just love that our books really do cross over and connect to each other. Um, as I said at that conversation, I have a whole chapter on love leadership, and that we can choose to not live by default, and like let the cards of our life, dictate what's going to happen to us, but really say, oh, these are the cards. How am I going to play them? And take ownership or accountability, and lead ourselves in the direction that we're going. So I just want to thank you again for having this conversation, sharing me with your community, and sharing your work with me. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Sequoia. You're certainly an inspiration, and I highly recommend, if anyone is working with non-monogamous relationships, to contact Sequoia, because it's certainly a place where support is needed to show up in that big of a way in your life. And so you can reach her at, well, her website is, your website is freelovemodel.com, or you can contact Sequoia at 914-487-4273. And, you can check out her book. The book is I'm Not Jealous, The Ethical Non-Monogamous Guide to Free Love and Relationships Without Suffering. Yeah, it's available on Amazon, or you can contact Sequoia. So Thank you so much for being here and for such a fun conversation.
Yeah,
And
you're welcome. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to do another conversation about some other topic soon.
absolutely. Okay. Uh,